What up, everybody? Scuffy here, and got a little something different, a little something special takeaway here, talking about today. First off, let me just turn that down so there's no additional noise on the record here. So, what I want to talk about today is something that just it depresses me, it irritates me. It's something that I'd like to share to hopefully make some people a little bit more aware, dissuade people from certain life choices, lead down frustrating paths, and kind of explain why said ideas are not good ideas. What am I talking about today, guys? Talking about Alpha Legion traps. Traps don't work. They don't work, and I'm not complaining about it. Please understand that. I want to dissuade people from trying to go mono traps. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. The traps were updated to reduce their cost about October. So we're going about 6 months back. It's been 6 months since these have been updated. And while there are certainly some meme builds to do, and there are cards, there is synergy within the faction, relying on traps as your win condition is not a good idea. It's not effective. It's not something that you can properly play unless you're doing it just for the sheer thrill of watching it come out. It's not something that works so well. I've got several game examples to show. But these are just ones from this week that I've saved. I have played, I don't know how many people, Alpha Legion, who are running traps in practice and ladder since October. And this is even including the heyday when, people were really upset about PEC and secret orders. There was still quite a large portion of people playing Alpha Legion traps. And I think, honestly, if I just had a safe guesstimate, I'd probably say I've played over 150 Alpha Legion opponents in 6 months' time. Right? That's 180 days. So that's actually probably not even accurate because I probably play at least 2 a day. So 180 days times 360. I'm just guessing. And there may be a day or two where it gives or takes and I don't get those Alpha. But I mean, just guessing, if I go off of average 2 Alpha Legion traps a day, I've played 360 of those. I've lost about 5 games. And I'm not saying that to boast, to say, hey, I'm awesome. I'm saying that to explain how bad they are. I've beaten with lots of different warlords, whether it was with Engopek, Alfarius, Angron, Karn, Lutara, Kalidas Assassin. I mean, these are just the ones I played recently. Any of the Wordbearer warlords. I've even beat one with the Sanguinius, which was a shock because I was just in practice and I was just testing the waters out. They don't work. They don't work. Why don't they work? Well, first, I'm going to play through several games, and as the games are playing, I'll try to explain why they don't work, how the easiest way if you encounter somebody who's doing it, how to play, and then we'll kind of go into the Alpha Legion card pool and explain maybe either A, if you really want to go down that road, different approaches to use, or B, just general things that you should know. So we'll start off with this most recent one here. This is with Lutara. I was just trying to put out frontline troops for challenges here. Anytime it's against Alpha Legion, I don't like to keep high cost cards, especially cards that create cards in my hand. So we're just going to junk that. We get Mount Pharos, but that's okay. We've got the last rifle to put some pressure on, and we're going to go from there. So typically your first I don't know, 3 or 4 different turns with the Alpha Legion roughly run the same day. Your Legionary uses their ability, they create a trap, they play the trap. Second turn, they create a trap, they play 2 traps. Third turn, they create a trap, they play 3 traps, maybe they play Infiltration and fill their hand back up with a bunch of traps. You don't know what they're playing. It's based purely on what they've generated as well as what they've included in their deck. And obviously there's the several types of traps. There's the Seeds of Betrayal, which draws 3 cards. There's the Enemy Within, which I believe is the one that does 5 damage to the Warlord. There's the one that destroys a troop, Hydra Dominatus, and then there's the one that stuns all. And I do not remember the name of the stun all. So they can create various ones of those, and if you haven't drawn any of their traps in those first 2 or 3 turns, they're going to make copies of all of those. I've just drawn 2 of their 2 or 3 traps in my second turn, and while that seems like they're off to a good start and they're feeling good about it, this deck here particularly has the ability to drop a lot of low-cost, cheap-cost cards and fill the board with troops. The entire time the opponent is playing traps. The entire time as an Alpha Legion player, regardless of whether or not you spend a turn playing Pale Spear or the Thunderhawk tactic effect, you are not putting down threats on the board. What you are doing instead in exchange for that is you are blowing your turn to not put threats on the board, to put a random chance of a threat into your opponent's deck. And depending on what that threat may be, the effect is going to be random. If you're generating cards that draw 3 cards, okay, you're going for, let's overdraw them. That's the typical trap strategy is load you up with like 9 Seeds of Betrayal and they all trigger at once and you overdraw your deck and that takes you to lethal. That's the general aim point. You could draw 4 Enemy Within and take 20 damage. That's possible too. But it's not guaranteed. It's not a given. It's not something to build a basis around. And here we are, just this turn here, with everything I've got on board. If he doesn't stun anything, and that's his only option is to bank on that. He's blown all his energy not stunning anything. And I have taken him down 16 health, and I have taken 0, and I have the ability to continually pressure more on the board, which is exactly what I'm going to do. And at the same time, I'm using all the cards at my disposal. I don't need to keep that Jubok around creating more cards. I don't need to keep Hurtado Bronzy. And then actually looking at that, I've got lethal here with everything that he's given me by drawing the cards, as well as the fact of me just playing my game as it's intended. I'm putting threats on the board. The amount of damage that you can take from having 2 troops at 5 attack on the board is not an even exchange for the chance that your opponent might take 5 or might draw 3 cards. It's not a good exchange. Now, on the flip side of that, that's a deck with a whole bunch of troops, right? So, I mean, it's not a fair comparison. There's nothing like a healthy deck when you stun the Warlord a bunch of times and it's a mono Warlord like Angron, right? Well, let's take a look. Here's one. I've got a second one as well. Similar result, different orders of play. Again, I don't need Conqueror, especially against Alpha Legion, that play very few and far between troops. I want to keep my hand low, and we're just going to go there. So this starts out like a decent Alpha Legion game. You're not quite sure which way it's going to go. Oh, he's going to play traps. First turn of the game, you can generally tell, unless they don't draw any traps, and that's hard to do if they've got 2 copies of all the 4. They've got 8 cards in their deck of traps, but it's possible. It's possible. But right off the bat, he's up to the gates. Now, here's the problem with traps, especially Seeds of Betrayal in an Angron deck. You're giving Angron more fuel. And while that might seem like, that's not such a bad deal, we can fill his hand up really quick, Angron's deck is comprised entirely of damage, and there's a couple pinch cards in there. And this is a prime example of me. Thank you. I don't need the Conqueror. That's going to be a dead card in my hand. But you just gave me 2 extra cards that are going to be very useful to me down the road, and I can easily play. They're not high cost. They're not going to get stunned. I'm just going to continue to feed into my win con, whatever it may be. And that's what I'm going to do. Knowing that he's playing traps as an Alpha Legion, I know that he has very few troops. Therefore, I don't need to hang on to those no survivors artillery strikes for too long. Plus, I've got the Conqueror to help deal with anything like that. I just need to hit him hard and hit him fast before I get stunned or before I overdraw a crucial key card. Everything I'm drawing here is more than enough to do the job at this point, right? We've got 4+2, we've got 3+2, we've got no survivors doing damage. The only thing that he has going in his favor is if he stuns me repeatedly, based purely on luck. Here's a turn that he stunned me. Or number 2, that he draws his one of many, both of them, and turn after turn is able to go into an Alfarius heal, and then maybe or an Exodus heal to buy him additional time. So that's what he has going for him. That's his best choice. I'm at 28 health, and he's at 5 at the end of this. So even if he plays a one of many, he's only going to be at 9. It's a pure gamble at this point. It becomes a point of desperation. It becomes a point of luck. Now, watching this entire game, we've had what, 1 trap come up? I'm not even counting. I gave up counting when I played Alpha Legion a while ago. I gave up counting the number of traps that they put in the deck. I just more or less count the number that come up over the course of the game, because I know that's got to be frustrating as the Alpha Legion player. His entire strategy is, I'll just put cards out there and hope something happens. That takes away the element of strategy in the card game, number 1, which is a big deal. Right? He can hope that something happens. He can hope that I drop those cards. All right, well, he stunned me. That's his second trap that's triggered. Problem is, it lets me draw another card still, so I don't get a dead draw, and as luck would have it for him, the luck was doubly against him. So not only did he stun me, I was able to just take him out. You could say that that's, oh, you got lucky. Did I? Because even if I hadn't killed him that turn, unless he healed a bunch more on his next turn, I was able to play my stun removal as well as my no survivors, and that's 5 damage right there, not counting anything else that I would have drawn. That is par for the course in many of those matchups, whether it is Angron, Karn. Again, I've got 2 more Angrons here. I don't need to show both of these. I'm going to show the Alfarius one. I don't even remember what that... I thought I had 3, but I guess I have 4. It's frustrating for me as an opponent to play it, because we're not interacting. And that's just the general thing. And I'm not complaining as a negative play experience compared to other decks or games where you can literally have a game experience where we aren't doing anything and that's decided. My opponent is basically bowing out of the chance to do anything, to take this secondary option in the hopes that something will happen. And it's frustrating to me to watch them do that and expect to win. And I have to wonder sometimes why. Like, what's the merit of that? What's the point of that? Are they doing it just for the fact that they could say that, hey, I did a traps deck? How many times are they winning with traps? Because I can tell you how many times they're not winning versus just my own experience. Unless people aren't too familiar with how they work with traps, you play cards. You play all your cards. That's your opponent is giving you the go-ahead to put stuff down on the board, to play your tactics. If they're hinting at you that they're playing traps, then they are leaving themselves open up to everything, be it direct damage via mortar strike, be it direct damage via goldstone hunters, be it troop builds, as you saw with the Lotara deck, just putting a bunch of bodies on the board that they cannot respond to. There is so much to say with how easily it is to take advantage of that, having nothing on the board, for your opponent. That it's disheartening that as a player, I imagine that, if you're the Alpha Legion opponent, you have believed to be some reason why you're doing it. You think that you're going to win this time, and does that make you more frustrated when you don't? I hope it doesn't, but I hope people at the same time, I hope at some point after a dozen games and the same results, those players kind of come to the terms of realization that this probably isn't a good way to go, and there's a better way to play Alpha Legion, or maybe I shouldn't be playing traps at all. I'd like to hope that. I really would. Now, in these games where you are playing, and this is just general experience with Alpha Legion, let alone trap builds specifically, I find that if you have a Wonders of Tisco or Pi Alpha, whatever the anti-stun is, you got to hold on to that for your clutch endgame attacks. Don't blow those too early, even though you want to play cards. It's not worth it. You want to save up for that. This would be a good time for me to use it, for example. Or when the trap triggers, if there's a stun trap there, I don't want to have used it early on when it wasn't necessary and wasted my opportunity to deal the 3 or 4 damage. And I really especially love saving it if I get a Gore Child out on there, 1 or 2 of those for the Whispers or just for that 5 damage at the end of the game. But that's to everybody's. There's always a pro and con. I mean, how you play it, but I just would recommend that if you have a deck with stun removal, save that for when you're going to need it. If you've got a bunch of troops, save it for when you've got the lethal. Don't just blow it to heal a dude. Blow it for proper death and destruction, as it were. And see, and at this point here, even if he were to stun me, I've got 2, 4, 5 damage with the strike and fade. It's the amount that I can do versus the amount that he has no front line. He has no other bodies to put pressure on and threats. The only 2 threats they had, there were 2 troops, and I put down troops that did more damage, and time and time again, it's the same result. So why doesn't it work? Beyond what we've already talked about. The big reason we've already talked about is because you're giving up that momentum. You're giving up a bunch of sway, right? Unless you've got a proper, you get lucky with every stun on every curve that you need to play, you're giving up a lot of momentum and you're taking a lot of heat, whether that's from troops or from direct damage tactics, whatever the case may be. And the only tactic that does anything is Enemy Within as far as direct damage. You've got False Flag. False Flag is the name for the stun. That's nice, but these other 2 don't do much. Seeds of Betrayal plays into the end game, but if you play a Seeds of Betrayal and they draw it up early on, you're just giving them cards, which, depending on their deck, they may be able to play easy enough before your Seeds of Betrayal really get out. The strategy of Seeds of Betrayal is really when they're around, like low deck size, and then you put in 5 or 6 Seeds of Betrayal, then you can cycle them through, and then they're just going to draw lethal at that point. But there's nothing here that goes. It's all high cost, it's all low cost, so people bank with the fact that I'll just play a bunch of 1 energies, and I'll use Infiltration, and I'll spam, and the odds have got to be for me. It's a completely odds-based thing. Whereas I think if you used a little bit more proper application, even if it was just a matter of trap decks including this guy, and this is, he's a Melgatorable troop, he's a 4-cost troop, there's that to be said, but if you put 4 or 5 traps in your opponent's deck, and then you play Decimus, you're still banking on the odds of it not coming up. But you put a threat on the board that your opponent has to deal with, because this guy is a body, but he's also a body with an ability that in the course of 1 turn, 2 traps trigger. Whatever the trap effect is, this guy could also deal 4 additional damage to the opponent's warlord. That's not to be overlooked. This guy here, not necessarily a Soria squad. I think really they should be vice versa stats. And that's, I think there's 1 more here that does something with traps. No, that might be it actually. Was there a tactic? We got Bronzy. Bronzy is a given. Bronzy is an endgame scenario. You play Bronzy when they really get desperate, they really throw down Bronzy and try to get as many traps in your deck as possible. But that's it. That's really all they've got. there's so much more within the faction between secret orders, just general stunning, threats, pressure, and then using the neutral cards to assist, that I think are much more effective use of card usage and actually putting down threats that you can rely on, whereas traps you cannot rely on. Secret orders, yeah, you could argue that you can't guarantee that. You can't guarantee that your opponent is going to play into your secret order, and that's entirely true, but there's a head game there because the secret order is on the board. And that's why I think secret orders are so much more better than traps. While they have limitations as far as who they can be played on, the secret order is on the board. Your opponent has to deal something with that trap, with that troop. Do they attack with it? Do they bounce it? Do they destroy it? What do they do with it? Do they ignore it and hope that that order doesn't trigger? It's a mind game thing. Whereas the traps, I'm just kind of like, okay, well, I'll play my game and I'll just try to hit you as fast as I possibly can. There is no mind game to it whatsoever. There is really just like if we were playing at a table, you sat down next to me and you were just shuffling cards the whole time while I'm slapping you in the face. And I'm not one to slap people in the face, but I'm just saying that's the game that we're playing. You want to shuffle your cards. Okay, how's this? We're having fun. That's why. Why do that to yourself? Guys, traps don't work. You draw them. They draw up, they trigger. If you want to play a meme deck, by all means, that's fine. I'm not trying to dissuade people from wanting to do it and just say that they did it. I won with a trap deck. I guess. I just think you could find something better to do with your time. I think you could find something better to do with Alpha Legion. I think that the trap Alpha Legion deck is a trap. I think Admiral Akbar would agree with me. It's a trap. It's not a trap when you're playing it to me. Okay, whatever. I'm just you've fallen into the rut at that point of either lack of creativity or insight or just pure boredom. I'm not sure, but I would hope that you would get more out of the game than just putting cards in my deck and hoping something happens. There's so much more within the game that you can do, whether it's forcing card draw to go into a harrowing, whether it is, Ghost Legionary, yeah, he's an epic, but against secret orders, I always applaud secret order usage. Headhunter Squad's not a bad threat to be ignored. You got your still classic Pale Spear builds, and these are just cards within the faction card pool, not to mention, the various options that could exist within the neutral card pool. And this isn't even going to the fact of how easy it is to disrupt a trap game. I mean, at 5 energy, if they've got an 8-card hand and I play Edict of Censure and their 8-card hand goes down to 1 card and it's their secret identity, that's kind of a big punch in the nuts. Presuming you have nuts. It just, you don't have any body, you don't have any troops, there's nothing there, there's no teeth, and I don't want people to get dissuaded to think that that's how they're supposed to play Alpha Legion. I don't want people to get dissuaded to feel like, okay, well, it's boring Alpha Legion, or more importantly, I don't want people to think that, oh, it's a trap deck, how am I supposed to win? Because you can. It's very easy. It's a very easy basis. Is it boring to play against? Is it frustrating? Possibly. Very much so on my end. Not necessarily boring, but it's disappointing when I play an Alpha Legion, and then that's what they go with. I would much rather play a stunny, tactical card draw game versus an opponent who is basically giving me the green light to run over on their board and hit them hard with whatever it is that I've got. This is a bit of a rant. I'm not going to lie. It's not. I don't normally do these things, but this has been going on for 6 months. I don't want this to change. Traps do not need to change. They're fine the way they are. They're fine as a meme. They're fine as a joke. They're fine as something that you might put in as like a 1 or 2 of, just to really screw with your opponent if you're in that mood. But guys, trap decks don't work. It's a trap to play trap decks. Don't do it. You're better than that. And believe me, I enjoy Alpha Legion. I'm not a huge Alpha Legion fan. I think as far as Legions go, they're cool. But I mean, you can go back on all my my tournament videos, card by card breakdowns. I had a whole video breakdown of Peck. I enjoy playing Alpha Legion. I enjoy the thought process. I play them a little bit differently than your standard, but at the same time, I've been that since day one, and I enjoy that. And that's a very easy way to play. I feel like playing traps and just traps is, sure, it's a super easy way to play, but it's a way to play that shows me that somebody either doesn't have understanding of the faction, or they don't, or they're committed to just trying something out ad nauseum until they just give up with it. And I don't want to break people's hearts, but give up with it. They don't work. Can they win? Yeah, I've lost. Like I said, I've lost maybe 3, maybe 4, at the most, in 6 months against trap decks. I started counting at the second one, which was like way into it. I was like, wow, I think I just lost to a trap deck. It doesn't happen often. It one a month, maybe, I guess, if you count, I think maybe one a month out of 60 games, if we're just going off of averages that I've established for myself. That's bad. That's bad. Come on, guys. The odds are so much higher that you could do something better with other decks, other warlords, another faction even, than just playing traps. And I like I said, this has been going on for 6 months. I've gradually, as time has gone on, I've decided to pin some of those games to share, just as pure examples, because it's like, oh, yep, here's another one. I mean, this is just within, that's today. That one was yesterday, and I'm not sure when these two were, but they must have been the day before. I think the day before that was this Angron one. So, I mean, that's just within the last 4 days. Maybe 5 days. I think 4. And I just want people to be better. I want people to play better. If I start playing Alpha Legion opponents and they're playing not traps and they're playing, all the tricks at their disposal, I'm going to applaud them. Good for them. They're doing it. If I'm playing somebody who's playing traps and they're doing the same old shtick, I'm not. But if they play traps and I'm seeing cards I don't normally see, there's some out there, I'll give you a nod. I'll applaud. I think that's great. You should be trying new things. There are other ways to go about it, but just the old tried and true, I'll just do this, and then at the end of the game, right before he kills me, I'll hit Exodus. Not a good idea, especially right now, given the fact that there's a big run on anti-stealth with Korax being bigger. People are going to be playing their informant networks, their Secretary Peltas, their Joker Company, even though Joker Company got nerfed a little bit. That 3 damage could be all it does that kills you. So don't rely on it. Don't rely on traps. Be smarter. Dodge the trap. That's what I'm saying. It's a long way, rant. It's a long way to show it. A lot of this is probably common knowledge to anybody who has played the game long enough and who has had the same results as I have. But maybe this will reach those 5 or 6 people out there who, and there's honestly, there's more than 5 or 6 of them, but I mean, somehow it'll reach out. Those 5 or 6 will tell 5 or 6, and those 5 or 6 will tell 5, and it multiplies. Stop with the traps. They don't work. You're not going to win enough to be happy and satisfied with it. And if you have one game with them, I applaud it. That's great. That's good for you. But was it worth it? Was it worth it? I don't think it is. I think you'd get more fun out of playing the game. I think you get more fun out of not relying purely on luck. On the luck of creating the trap, and on the luck of putting the trap in the opponent's deck, and on the luck of them drawing it, and them drawing it at the time that you need them to draw it at, not beforehand. Don't want them drawing up all your traps before you get to play infiltration and copy those traps. Don't want them drawing up that destroy a troop when they don't have any troops on the board, and then they play their big troop. Don't want that. All right, guys, that's enough for me. That's it. I vented. I've gotten it off my chest. I'm gonna keep moving on, and I hope you guys do too. I hope, spread the love, spread the word. It's a trap to play traps. Don't do it. That's all I gotta say. All right, until next time, keep playing Legions, and we will talk to you later. Bye. Alright, that wraps it up for me. If you liked what you saw, feel free to like and subscribe, add any comments below, and if you think the video might be useful or the series might be useful, feel free to share that with other players that you know as well. And we'll talk to you later.